Good morning, my beautiful friends. So, it's a dumpster fire out there. This we can agree on. And I've tried to make this video twice before. I'm hoping the third time is the charm. Because even though I'm gray now, I'm a fiery redhead underneath all this. And I get so fired up. And that doesn't spread light and love. So I had to step back and think about the message. And the message really is that we cannot trust our leaders to do the right thing. And over the course of human history, that story has played out over and over. The rich and powerful do awful, awful things, and there are many victims, and there's nobody out here being a guardian or, being a hero. And I often turn to music. I play music when I'm really frustrated, but unfortunately you can't play bagpipes at 2 in the morning because my neighbors get mad. So I was listening to music, and I was listening to a song from the 80s by Bonnie Tyler. And I think I pulled up the lyrics so that I could remember how this goes, because it just was going out. It was going through my head, and I was singing the Shrek version of this song, Shrek 2 version of the song, which is a little slower, and I'll put links below. But it's Holding Out for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler, and it starts with, where have all the good men gone, and where are all the gods? Where's the streetwise Hercules to fight the rising odds? Isn't there a white knight upon a fiery steed? Late at night I toss and turn, and I dream of what I need. I need a hero. I'm holding out for a hero to the end of the night. And I think to myself, like, that's the problem, is that, I'm not political, and I didn't have any beans in the buckets of any of the people running or any of the people in power, because over the past 53 years, how old am I? 52. 52 years of my life, I've not really seen great leadership. I think the only president that I can say with certainty tried to do good things was Jimmy Carter. And I'm not a Democrat or Republican, but I just feel like he operated from the heart, and he was trying to, be peaceful. But there's all kinds of, theories and comments on all of that. And I'm not getting into that because I don't even know any of it. But I would say that he was never at Epstein's Island. Right? And I think what bothers me, like what fires me up, is that there were so many people who have been put into this administration who were social media personalities that swore that they would uphold the truth and that they would tell the truth, and that if they couldn't tell the truth, they would at least say why they couldn't tell the truth. And I had high hopes that maybe something would change. And sadly, nothing has changed, except that the good people that we thought were good are not. And I'm specifically talking about Dan Bongino. I don't know enough about Kash Patel, but I know that, lawyers tend to be the kinds of people who can go to either side, because they always have to defend people who do bad things, and they have to live with themselves at the end of the day. So, I don't know anything about Kash Patel, but I'm thinking more about Dan Bongino, because he was a police officer first, and then he works protecting the president, and I thought he was, even though I didn't agree with all this stuff, I thought he was a good guy, and I still think he's a good guy, but I've lost my respect for him, because he said he would tell the truth. He said he would stand up for the victims, and he's not. He's part of the cover-up. And it's kind of like, if you're not first, you're last, right? So, if you're not protecting the innocent, then you're protecting the powerful. And that's the cover-up, right? That's the cover-up. And so we're never gonna know the answers. And I think what is more frustrating is sort of the gaslighting that happens. Like, how dare you ask a question like that? You are un-American. No, I'm not. I'm asking reasonable questions. How dare you be critical of the FBI? That is exactly what we fought for on the 4th of July. Well, not on the 4th of July. That's what we celebrate on the 4th of July, was that we were no longer willing to accept the tyranny from England, and we wanted our own, we wanted our own say. So our culture is built on the ability to speak freely. And the gaslighting, you're stupid, you're wrong, you're ugly, you're fat, you're like, these are all the reasons why you can't ask a question. Gaslighting, really. And it is no surprise that our leadership is corrupt because it always has been. And we can't look, those aren't our heroes. I was thinking of another song, Everybody Knows by Leonard Cohen. I pulled up the lyrics to that because that song is great too, and I'll link it below. Everybody knows that the dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows the war is over, and everybody knows that the good guys lost. Everybody knows the fight was fixed. The poor stay poor, and the rich get rich. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. So, where does that leave us in the spiritual community? The people who are out here championing light and love, doughy-eyed and daisy-faced, right? What does that do for us? Well, the good men, the good women, the good people, they're the volunteer firefighters and fire police. They are the victims of a horrible, horrible flood that the next day go out and dig through the rubble, that they dig through the shattered lives, that they have, they survived the shattering, but they go out and they look for others so that they can bring closure to the families of people who are missing. They are the people who willingly go out and, leave their homes and leave their families to go and volunteer in places where there's a need. They are the people who aren't rich. They're not on the Lolita Express. They don't have 10 extra bucks to contribute to a political campaign. They're just regular humans like you and me doing the real work of goodness. And, I think we get duped every once in a while because we have high hopes in someone like Dan Bongino. But at the end of the day, all of them operate the same way, right? But they're not the leaders. They're followers, really. They really are followers. They're following the money. They're following each other. They're covering each other up. None of them are protecting the innocent. None of them are protecting, like I said, there's the little boy in the river. That image is going to stick with me forever. That little boy in front of the camper, and the poor woman who watched and couldn't help, helpless, wanting to help, wanting to do something, and she couldn't. She physically could not do anything. Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, all of them, they have the ability to do something, to bring justice forth so that the victims, can know that the cases have been treated fairly. And they're not going to jump in the river because they're afraid their shirt might get wet. But they promised that they would jump in the river until they were standing at the river. And then like, oh, no, I mean, I that's not a boy, that's a stick. You're seeing it wrong. It's all your fault. You heard me wrong. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and render unto God that which is God. And you can replace God with whatever higher power you have. We can't trust the leadership. They're corrupt, and they're always going to be corrupt. And even when we think there's a hero, we think the white knight is coming, it just turns out that was all bullshit. So don't put your hope in them. You know who you can put your hope in? Your neighbor. Put your hope into your neighbor. That's what I'm going to do. Do good things in the communities you serve with the people that you can help touch. And those little birthday candles mean the world. Or it's with that story about the starfish, right? There's this story or a poem about starfish, and there's hundreds and hundreds of starfish, and this person is throwing them back one at a time, and this person comes up and goes, like, that's so much work. I mean, you're never going to save them all. And, why bother? And the person says, well, I may not be able to save all of them, but I was able to save this one, and it'll mean the world to this one. So throw your starfish one at a time. Do what you can where you are to make the world a better place. And just don't rely on the leadership to do anything, because they're not gonna. So I am wishing you all the best in light and love. Be well. Take care. Keep your wits about you. Bye-bye.